Welcome to the Bowls of Life podcast. I'm Virginia.
You did not do the intro the way I thought you were going to do it. We did a whole thing. Now I'm sad. It's okay. I'm Tyler. And despite the fact that I'm sad, we've gone through a lot in life. Some of those emotions are sadness. And we've learned something important.
Life is messy.
Like this intro.
There are a lot of armchair experts out there who will try to tell you how to make life simple.
But it's not, so you won't find any here. Instead, you're going to find everyday people who have jumped into the mess of life and are making an adventure of it. And if you're watching the video on YouTube, my wife did motions to the intro there, so it's definitely worth you swinging through YouTube, searching Bowls of Life, and watching that moment, if nothing else.
Also, it looks like we're in front of a really cool mountain
Range?
painting.
Yeah.
Tapestry.
Tapestry. I like tapestry. That's a good word.
That's what it is.
Would that actually be a tapestry? It's not a I guess. Okay.
It's not a weave tapestry.
I guess that's really what I'm thinking of, like weaving type thing. That's cool. Well, hey, what are we doing today, babe?
We're talking about intellectual wellness, which is not the same as mental or emotional wellness.
Yes, yeah. Mental, emotional wellness kind of has to do with, like, I guess state of mind might be a good way to describe that. Like how you're doing in your state of mind. Sure. Where intellectual wellness on the other side is more of, it's about being open to new ideas. It's thinking critically. It's finding ways to be creative. And then it's allowing those new ideas, that critical thinking skill, those creative moments to fuel you to better know God and to also mirror Him to other people. So, when we talk about intellectual wellness, we're not talking about your mental state of mind. We're more talking about your ability to learn, to use your brain, and then to be creative.
Yeah, it's like an active pursuit.
I like that. Active pursuit. Yeah. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah,
and so, of course, I think that we tied on the end there, but it's to help you know God better and to mirror Him.
Yes, absolutely.
I like that little
specification. Yeah, we're going to be joined today by our friends Kevin and Pam Smith. They're going to join us. They're going to talk about what's motivated them to be forever learners. It's kind of the term we went with in the interview. How creativity has helped them grow in their faith. And also a conversation that I did not expect to go where it went, talking about D&D and how that can be used to share the gospel. And if you're unfamiliar with what D&D is, or you just kind of know it as this weird nerdy thing, strap in. It's actually a conversation worth listening to, I promise. I know I'm a little nerdy, but I promise it's worth your time.
Yeah, it's totally took me by surprise. So you guys who don't really care about D&D and don't even know what it stands for, don't worry. I promise you will hear something good.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, he is a thinker for sure when he's really wanting to respond to a question. So he'll pause from time to time. He's going to think a little bit, and there's some moments where he's very descriptive and uses a lot of imagery in the way he talks. And so you're probably going to need to pause and rewind to reflect on some of the things he explains, especially if you listen to podcasts the way I listen to them on time and a half and while I'm doing something else. You're really going to need to slow it down and kind of listen into what he has to say.
It was very intellectual.
Yes, and that's what we were going for. Well, without further ado, let's hop into our interview with Kevin and Pam.
All right, we are so excited to have Kevin and Pam with us today. So welcome, you guys.
Hi.
Hello. Yeah, so why don't you both just give a brief intro of yourself?
Take the lead.
Of course, like you said, my name is Pam. I am married to Kevin Smith, and I met y'all through the exchange, the church that we both attend. I have a 20-year-old daughter that is turning 21, getting married, and graduating college this year. So she's really in the pocketbook this year. I'm an animal lover, and I recently left a 13-year job of finance to make cakes.
I love it. Yeah. So I didn't realize she was
Yeah.
graduating and getting married all at once.
Yep.
So much stuff. Yeah.
A whole lot.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for 2 seconds since we're here and you mentioned it. Pam, you are a little young to have a 20-year-old. Tell me a little bit of that story.
A little backstory on that. She's actually my niece, and her father passed away. Her mom went off and did drugs instead of raising the kids. She ended up living with her grandmother that was diagnosed with cancer. And at 11 years old, Kaylee made the decision that she didn't want to feel like a burden to her grandmother while she was struggling to take care of an 11-year-old and go through chemo treatments, and called and said, "Hey, can I live with you?" And we had always joked that when she turned into a teenager, they were giving her to me anyway. And so I just said, "Yeah, come on." And the same day she showed up with a bag, and
Wow.
that was all she wrote. Her grandmother actually ended up beating cancer. So
Wow.
she's still around. She's doing
Praise the
good.
Lord.
And yeah, it was weird going from having no children and pretty much kind of being a kid myself to raising a preteen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how old were you when you took her in?
I don't remember. I was
Young.
right. I don't remember. I was in my early 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So really young.
Yeah, I was. And I joke and tell people there's a reason God gives them to you as infants. There's
For sure.
a learning curve that you have to go through before you have
Yeah.
a preteen.
Yeah. And you guys, have you gone through the adoption process, or is it just you?
No, I had to go through the process of getting her mother's rights terminated and me getting custody of her, just because of, I mean, insurance reasons and me being able to take her to the doctor or schedule stuff at school. Like when we moved, I couldn't even change her buses because
Yeah.
I had no rights to her. So we had to go through that entire process.
Okay.
But we actually decided not to actually adopt her, which was a choice that she and I made, just because of the benefits that she could get to go to college.
Sure.
Being essentially a ward of the state, which sounds
Gotcha.
bad, but there was no way I could have afforded to send her to
Right.
college in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is, I mean, just a testament to the gospel. You kind of adopting her into your life as your daughter, even though it wasn't maybe an official adoption. So that's a really cool story, Pam. So thanks for sharing about you. And we'll continue to talk as we go. But Kevin, your turn.
Hi, guys. Kevin here. Let me just say this. I don't know how many people know this. Pam and I met on a social dating app. And our first date was at the church. And her and Kaylee were standing out front waiting for me. And so my side of the story, I don't know where they are, but Pam tells it with her back turned towards me. And she says, "Kaylee, you have to tell me if it's really him or not, and if he's cute." Well, I get out of the car and I start walking, and Kaylee looks and sees me coming. She goes, "Yeah, he's cute."
Love it.
I win.
Oh man.
But yeah, so we met on a dating app, and we are coming up on our first year anniversary in June.
Yeah.
20th. And so we get to share our anniversary with all the dads out there, because it's on
Father's Day.
Nice.
Love it.
But yeah, worked for Brett McKay. Was at Buffalo Peak Outfitters. Was with them for on and off for like 11 years. Ran a coffee shop in Fondren for 5 years. So I kind of dabble in a lot of different things. I'm not great at all of them, but I try.
I love it. I like the idea of dabbling. I'm kind of on that train too. And Pam, I think you are as well. It's just kind of like I dabble. I can, try a few different things and then maybe sit on something for a little bit, but you might go on from there. Whether we were talking about crafting earlier, I think that's a part of that. But the funniest story I love for Pam to tell. Typically it's Pam that tells the story, but everybody thought Kevin invited Pam to the exchange.
Yes.
But it was actually Pam who had been coming to the exchange. And she invited Kevin.
Yes. So I've had quite a few people actually walk up to me and be like, so how long have you been going here? When did Kevin first invite you? And I'm like, I was here 2 years before I invited Kevin. And even Bryant was like, yeah, so, and this was like 2 months after Kevin had started coming, and he was like, well, Kevin helped with the Christmas at the park last year, didn't he? And I was like, no, he wasn't here. He was like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm pretty sure. I mean, unless he's been stalking around in the background. It was there.
That's just a testament to the difference in your personalities, I think. I mean, Pam, you're a little under the radar is kind of your goal. Like, you're not looking to make waves. Kevin, on the other hand, I don't know if you're looking to make waves, but you make them nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a difference in personalities. God meshes us together to where it don't seem like it would make sense, but he brings me out of my comfort zone, and I kind of make him calm down a little sometimes.
Yeah. I can agree that we kind of are like that too. Like opposites attract, but definitely by the grace of God that we stay together, when we come together in our differences.
Oh, definitely.
I'm like the kid in the pool with the inflatable that just is up and down, making waves, and not thinking that they're going as far or as big. And so she knows when to come in and either pop the inflatable and like, hey, let's stop, or jumps on there with me and we make bigger waves.
I love it. No, that's a good visual. All right, well, we got some background on YouTube, but I'd love to just hear some super random things. So we're gonna do what we like to call rapid fire questions. And so you've got 4 choices, and those choices are a color. It's red, green, blue, or black. And so, Kevin, I'll let you go first. Red, green, blue, or black?
Green.
Green. All right, let's hit a green. Let's see. Describe your sense of humor in 1 word. It's a solid word. I like it. That's a good word. All right. Pam, red, green, blue, or black for you?
Let's go with black.
All right. Okay. You have $100,000. You have to donate or create a charity. What do you do?
I donate. I would donate it to pretty much any animal charity.
Love it.
Fair enough. Why not create an animal charity?
Honestly, because if there's already so many, and there's so many that need it, that I feel like creating one would just take out of the pockets of people that already are helping the animals and have an established business to actually know where to put the money.
Very good.
I like it. Makes good sense. Okay. Kevin, red, green, blue, or black?
Red.
Red. All right. Would you rather have to grow, hunt, and kill your own food, or eat only Taco Bell for a year?
Oh my gosh, Taco Bell.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. I'm so proud of you, Kevin. Taco Bell is, I mean, it's all you need, honestly.
It
They've
really
got
is.
all the food groups.
All the food groups and Baja Blast.
Preach the gospel. Preach.
I can't
the
eat
gospel.
gluten, so Taco Bell's kind of out of the range for me now.
Ah.
Trying to think, with the rice bowl, the bowl thing, does that have gluten in it? I mean, I guess
No.
no. Yeah, so they got these bowls, all right? All right, I'm just saying, they're
great.
delicious. Virginia likes them. It's like a power bowl, I think.
Yeah.
They're really good.
I'll have to
Mhm.
try.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. It's rice, beans, and then all the other
He
goodies.
said $5. He knows how much they are.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah. All right, Pam. Red, green, blue, or black?
Let's go blue.
What would be the worst ingredients to fill a burrito with?
Oh, worst ingredients?
Yeah.
Insects,
Ew,
Crickets.
yeah. That's a
Crickets.
good one.
bugs,
Mm.
things of that nature.
I was about to say no, Pam, like real foods, but then I went, nah, there are plenty of people who
That's
eat
real.
those exact things.
Yeah.
Huh. That would make for a crunchy, weird
See,
burrito.
that's what I was thinking. The texture. I wasn't even
Mhm.
thinking about the fact that you were eating a cricket.
It's a
But-
Crunch Wrap Supreme.
Oh,
Ew, okay, yeah.
Oh, I would never look at the Crunchwrap Supreme
Mm-mm.
the same way again.
No.
Nope, never again. All right, one last one for you, Kevin. Red, green, blue, black.
Let's go with a blue one.
Would you rather go 30 days without your phone or your entire life without dessert?
30 days without a phone.
That's I mean, I get it. I don't know. 30 days without my phone. I like to think that would be a very enjoyable time, but I might also have withdrawals.
Okay, so 30 days though, like that has an end to it. I feel like that's why that would be easier to pick.
it'd be like a little mini vacation.
Right.
Yeah, and I
It really
think
would
if
be.
after a month of not having it, I could probably continue to go without it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like, dessert?
You don't want to miss out on
Nah.
that. Mm-mm.
Nah.
For the rest of your life.
No.
Yeah. Okay, 30 days without a phone it is.
Yeah. All right. Last one, Pam. Red, green, blue, or black?
Green.
Okay. Okay. What's the grossest?
Scares me.
What's the grossest thing you've ever seen someone do in public?
Hawk loogies.
Ew. Okay. Yeah.
I can't get behind that, and people do it constantly. I don't know if it's a Southern thing or what, but you almost can't stop at the gas station without some man hawking up his lung.
Okay. Yeah. That's really gross.
Mm.
I feel like I haven't seen that very often, but I've seen it and I've heard it, and it makes me want to gag.
All right, is it the visual or the sound?
Definitely the sound, because the visual doesn't bother me. It's the whole process of it, I think.
Yeah.
The sound's bad, but I did see a man poop at a bus stop in DC once.
Oh wow.
That was interesting.
I don't know what to do with that. So
Was it like a homeless man?
Nope. He was waiting on the bus. Decided to,
That's a little crazy.
yeah. Yeah.
I
I
don't think
left. I didn't
yeah,
hang-
I would say I don't think I could have stuck around for that.
No, I saw the beginning and was like, all right, I see where this is going. I'm leaving.
Woo. Oh boy. Yep. Well, I think the poop beats the loogie, but both are gross. So
yes.
yeah. All right.
Goodness. I don't have a good transition from that, but we're gonna do it anyway. Transition. We nailed it. Great transition. Oh, goodness. All right. So both of you have talked already about being dabblers of many things. So what I think about when I hear that is somebody who is like a forever learner. Like you just want to learn new things and get into new things. So what do you guys what do you think it means to really be a forever learner in day-to-day life?
So for me, and this is something that was instilled in me at a very young age from my grandfather. Um, he was the one person growing up that I always looked up to, because he was constantly learning something, and he was learning something new up to the day that he passed away. Um, and so just just being in that environment with him and seeing him do that, it just came as second nature to me. So I've never really, until being met with the question, I've never really thought about being a forever learner. It's just kind of happened naturally. And so I think that's something that has definitely attracted me to Pam as well, was seeing her desire to learn new things on a daily basis, but also what she's been able to teach me about things that I didn't know. So I can definitely say that I know a lot more about serial killers and true crime than I ever thought I would. But I also think she knows more about Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons than she ever thought she would.
Definitely.
I love it.
So it's, I guess, a little bit of an abstract answer. Like, it's not something that I've ever thought was something that could have a title as a forever learner.
Mm,
So it's just, if I want to know how to do something, I either look it up or I just go try it.
I like it. I like that that's been so ingrained in you because of someone you looked up to, your grandfather, and the fact that it's just part of your DNA. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, and I got a one instance. I was reading The Hobbit when I was 4,
Oh, wow.
When
and
you
so
were
like at 4.
wow. Okay.
So reading is a huge love. Um, because I mean, obviously we had kids books, but I much preferred reading things that had more words in them than just like one line sentences and a picture. Because I have like a theater of the mind um, approach to a lot of it. And
Mm.
so even in the process of learning new things, there's this theater of the mind, like how does this work?
Describe what you mean by theater of the mind.
Yeah.
So theater of the mind, the more the more words, um, obviously verbs, adjectives that you can use to describe things, how they're happening, how they look, smell, taste to someone either sitting in front of you or over the phone or however that is, um, giving them enough to go off of to where they can actually start to internally feel those things and see them. And so one of my favorite words is cacophonous. And so it's just a large booming sound.
Mm.
So instead of saying that lightning was loud, so there was a cacophony of thunder rolling through the plains.
Very
Gotcha.
descriptive and like I remember learning these words in English, but
Yeah.
imagery.
No, that's good. I like that. That that you don't just settle for the middle. It very much makes me think of Dead Poet Society. you know. And what's the English language exist for? To woo women.
Yep.
Then why would you use the word very when you could describe it in such a more detailed way?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's good.
So.
All right, Pam, this one's towards you since Kevin already mentioned it a little bit. What do you think of when you hear the initials DM?
Of course, Dungeon Master. So I actually remember reading that question, and I looked at Kevin and was like, "Are they talking about Dungeon Masters?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." But if you would have asked me that a few years back, I'd have been like a nerd sitting at a computer playing a game.
Right.
But now that I am married to one, I realize that it's so much more. And I get to sit on this side of it. I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I get to sit here and listen to the whole story unfold. And not only that, but the work that he puts into it. He creates this whole universe and city, town, the people in it, all the way down to the animals, the plants, what the smell is in the town, and everything else. So it's mind boggling, I guess, to think that a lot of this stuff is just done on a whim because you can't control what the other players' choices are going to be. You can try to steer them to certain things, but there's been a few nights he's like, they didn't go where I wanted. I had to ad lib the entire thing.
That's what 4 or 5 hours of ad libbing.
Right. And so it's just fascinating what he can just pull out of thin air, or what it looks like to me, pull out of thin air. The stories and backgrounds and all of that.
That's super impressive. I don't have a whole lot of background on D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, but I did watch Stranger Things, and they played it on that TV show. So I feel like it would be fun because it's very creative and like fantasy kind of other world, like just, I don't know, fun. So maybe one day you'll have to show me some things, show us some things.
Yeah, I heard you talk about it not too long ago that you've been recording a lot of your D&D sessions and like transcribing them after the fact. So what's kind of your thought process behind doing that?
So with recording them, I don't have a lot of time to take notes while we're playing. And so it's definitely a thing of giving them something to go back to and listen to certain points within the story, maybe something they miss because the players are definitely taking more notes while I'm going through my 15 different books in front of me and 2 computer screens with like 72 pages pulled up on it of stuff. Wow. But doing the recording gives them something to go back to relive those moments. But it also gives me the ability to expound on maybe a non-player character I created on the whim. And I'm like, oh man, that would be really fun. So there's this one that Pam actually helped me with
unintentionally.
And so I named this farmer Trevor. I can't really remember how Trevor. Well,
we bought goldfish. And I named one Trevor and was making up a personality for the fish.
I like it.
So
yes.
I applied that to the farmer in the game. Well, I didn't really think that he was going to go much further than like the last 15 minutes of the session. Well, he ended up being a character that made it through about 4 different sessions.
Wow.
And so that gives me the ability to go back and say, okay, well, how did I make them interact? Because not only am I doing these characters, I'm also doing different voices for all of them. So I have to go back and remember, okay, well, I use this inflection here. So for me to keep the story and the authenticity of it fluid, I put extra weight on myself to be able to carry that out for them as the years go on.
You just use the word years. And so obviously all of this time, energy, and effort that you're putting into D&D to be the dungeon master for a group of people playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're obviously getting paid by them to do this, right?
Negative.
This is a hobby.
Yeah, so
Wow.
what's your motivation in putting in that much time and energy to it?
It is going back to the things I've learned from my granddad, the storytelling, the different. I grew up reading Louis L'Amour books with him, so the Wild West, um, and something that I've always loved is how you can how you can take things from your own life, how you can take things from others people's lives, and weave that into something to where you have people who come around a table, and right now it's a digital table, um, who carry all kinds of baggage, who carry all kinds of things through life, and they get the ability to sit down and make a character and tell a story from their own perspective and live through that character in a fictional world for 4 or 5 hours in a way maybe they wouldn't do that in real life.
Mm.
And so my motivation behind it is to challenge them to go beyond their comfort levels. Um, and maybe by the end of it, they've learned something new about themselves that they can carry back out into the world and apply that.
Wow. That's so much more of a deep answer than I was expecting from that, but I love that. I love that in this moment you're not only looking to have fun and enjoy and hang out with some friends, family, whoever's playing, but you're also looking for ways to help them grow. That's so good. So as somebody who I've heard pieces of some of your faith journey. I know it was a little bit later in life for you, I believe, before you really came to that conclusion that Jesus is legit. So tell me a little bit of how some of this forever learner mentality you got kind of played into your faith journey.
Um, and there's a moment, um, definitely for me that I reached where it was kind of this one-way trajectory, and instead of the road just splitting off in 2 directions,
Mm.
I felt like I was met with uh, basically stepping into a tunnel of different caverns and paths. And so I say that in an analogy of me having to go deeper and into some areas maybe that I was scared of at a younger age, to discover what was down there in Kevin. And the only way to know what's down there is to take what little light that you have, take the first couple of steps, and basically accept the fact that reality itself in the world that we live in seems a lot colder and closer than we allow it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that happened, I definitely went through my rebellious tendencies. And what started off as a positive thing, I believe, for myself, ended up turning into the thing of and just even relating to Scott's sermon yesterday, basically making a home for myself in the darkness and not fighting to get out, because I became complacent and content with where I was. And so it took the walls starting to cave in to wake me up and say, you got to get out of here. There's a light that's there that you lost sight of.
So many good visuals in there.
I know. I felt like I was just taken down down the path of Kevin's brain for a minute.
Yeah, no.
But that's really,
It's good.
it's really good because it's like, scripture does tell us that the light, our light that comes from Jesus, that you use that light to get rid of darkness. And talking about darkness and light, like in your life, you could have just sat there in the darkness, but there is a light, Jesus, and he could, dispel that darkness with his light, and then we can walk around with the Holy Spirit and be a light to others.
Right.
Right.
So that's a really cool visual.
All right, more lighthearted one for a minute. Let my brain breathe. Pam, does it ever get annoying when he starts going all imagery on you? Or do you love the way he does just like very imagery driven conversation?
Okay, so I have ADD. So he knows if we're having a serious conversation, he can do the imagery but he knows that if it's a regular like day by day conversation, just to get to it with me.
Get to the
Because I zone out, y'all. I've zoned out like 3 times since we've been sitting here.
I love it.
That's why I can't sit in the back at church. I have to sit at the front. One Sunday, I paid attention to a baby all sermon. When I left, I realized I had no idea what they were talking about. Yeah. So I really love it when we're in a deep conversation and I am in a headspace to where I can focus.
Sure.
But a lot of times he'll start and I'm like, and I have to come back to it. And he notices I do it. And so he'll like speed it up and get past it for me.
Kevin, this is kind of my first experience with that, hearing you be so descriptive in your speech and yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. So Pam, I'm sure you kind of got to ride that sometimes.
Oh yeah. I
that wave
9 times out of 10, but there's those days where the brain just is not going to focus on it.
I love it. Oh
no, that's fair.
So on this journey to sharpening your mind or, learning more, whether it was about yourself or even just about who God is, were there times, and this can be a question for both of you guys, did that ever cause you to doubt your faith or doubt God or think otherwise that he wasn't real?
110%. And I know that sounds bad to answer that. So yes.
Oh, it's real.
But growing up, I did not grow up in church.
Mhm.
My family did teach me about God, but I remember as a 6-year-old going to a Pentecostal church for the first time, and I was out. Like, that was it for me.
Hmm.
Um, but so growing up and through junior high and high school, I had friends that were of all different religions. I still do. And I remember one girl was studying paganism. Um,
Hmm.
and so I started studying it, which made me really interested in the different religions and different spirituality, worships and stuff like that. So I started questioning. So me being curious and me wanting to learn more started making me question, but which one's right?
Mm. So, what was it that made you realize that Jesus was the way, the truth, and the life?
So in the expense of sounding super cheesy, the exchange.
Give that plug for our local church.
Right, exactly. But seriously, my daughter had been trying to get me to come to church with her. She was going to another church somewhere in Pearl. And I kept making up excuses. I'd drop her off on Sunday and roll out. And my brother was getting baptized, and you have to be a pretty horrible sister not to go to that, right? So
Right.
so I woke up and I went, and I thought, oh, this isn't that bad. It had a good energy about it. I felt positive. The people were
Mm.
great. I felt comfortable. I was like, okay, well, we'll go next week, just to see if it's the same, since this is a baptism celebration.
Hmm.
Well,
Yep.
the next week, actually, Pastor Scott was preaching.
Oh, wow.
And
Full
so
circle.
I was like, well, that's not the same guy. So I guess I liked it enough, but I'll go again to see if the regular pastor's there again for the third week. And well, that's pretty much all she wrote, because the third week Jack Smith got me, and
You were,
that was
yep,
it. That was it.
up for it then.
But no, seriously, seeing Jesus move in other people in our church uh made me want to be like that. I wanted that.
Mm.
And I joke about Jack Smith, but him and Lauren are one of the main reasons that I'm spiritually where I am today.
Yeah.
Jack actually sought me out. He was like, I've seen you've been coming. I've been trying to catch you to talk to you.
Hmm.
But just knowing the love and, I mean, the genuine care that most of the people in our church have, I wanted that. I wanted that for myself, and I wanted people to see me as that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's how Jesus got me.
That's awesome. I love it. And I'll just plug and say Jack Smith is the reason why we continued to come to the
Yep.
exchange after
Yeah.
our first visit. So
Yeah.
love those Smiths as well.
Mm.
All right, Kevin, I want to hear from you
No
too.
shit.
Just, your journey of maybe some of that intellectual pursuit maybe causing you to doubt if that even happened for you. Maybe it caused you to know more, learn more, love more.
It it definitely had its moments of bringing me to a place of questioning, um, because I think we all have a point in our lives where our perspective of what's going on doesn't make sense with what God's doing.
Mm.
And so uh, something just past couple of weeks, kind of another analogy, if you will. Um, I know pretty much everybody in the world's probably seen Bob Ross paint.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay? And so picture Bob Ross setting up his canvas And as he starts to do things, maybe there's points where he's doing something and you're like, God, that really just doesn't fit. Like how is he gonna fix that? Like he's got to have messed up. Maybe he did something too big or too dark. And then by the end of it, he brings it all together and it's much more beautiful than what you could have imagined it was because you were so hyper focused on the thing that looked wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'll even use a C.S. Lewis quote that he wrote in regards to his wife passing from cancer. He said, "Not that I am, I think, in much danger of ceasing to believe in God. The real danger is coming to believe such dreadful things about Him. The conclusion I dread is not so there's no God after all, but this is what God is really like. Deceive yourself no longer." And so I think I can definitely say I've had those moments of where things were taken away from me abruptly, um, and they seemed too dark or too big in that moment. And it's like the perplexity of it caused me to say, well, I know I've experienced you, I know you're real, but how on earth could you cause this to happen? And it's almost like we reach a tipping point of allowing that kind of perspective to shape and skew the view and image of who God is. And so in pursuits of fleshly, lustful, completely against the grain of what I was raised up in that I went after. If you start allowing those things to shape the image of God, then you can go back to what the people were doing all throughout the Old Testament of chasing after these different Baals and saying, well, this piece of wood is my God. This piece of stone created me. This. And so by the end of it, you lose yourself. And I definitely can say that there were moments in my life where I lost myself.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to that whole idea of like God is the creator, as Bob Ross is the creator of his paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, God has the bigger perspective.
Yep.
Whereas we only go off of either what we see, but not only what we see, how we perceive it, and then how our flesh reacts to it. Now, I was just watching a video before we started this interview, just a quick video on Instagram. Jackie Hill Perry was like, your flesh is a liar. It will tell you that you need this, that this will bring you comfort, that this will help you, and you go for that. But it is a lie. And even when you go a little bit of this or a little bit of that, it will take you down a darker path, the further that you go with it. And God is truth. God is light, whereas our flesh is a lie, or it gives us lies. So
Right.
yeah, so
Love it.
yeah.
You kind of started talking about this a little bit earlier, and so I want to come back to it. All your vast realms and different focuses that you've had in your life and interest, forever learners, whatever phrases you want to use for it, and all of those different things that you're good at or have at least dabbled in. How do you take all of that, bottle it up, and then use that to focus and point other people towards Jesus?
You want to go? You want me to go?
Sure. I So most of the stuff, well, no, that's a lie. I learn a lot, but about different things, I guess, if that makes sense. So a little about a lot of things. There we go. That's the best
Yep.
way to put it. But I think that it helps you relate to people. So there has to be something that I can talk to Virginia about. I know that she does the macrame stuff. So I don't know how to do that, but I would love to learn, right? So we can start a conversation with that, which then I can turn into talking about, something was said at church about this, or, and I can lead that conversation to Jesus. But I think that anytime that we have vast knowledge about things, it just helps us connect with people to where, a lot of people assume that as a Jesus follower, I just chase people around with the little mini Bibles and I'm like, hey, do you know Jesus? Do you know Jesus? But people don't listen if you do that. You have to relate with people before you start to have a deep conversation with them about anything,
Yeah.
So I think that that's how it helps me being a, creative person and a forever learner. It just helps me connect with different people.
Yeah, I can definitely say that I've had that similar thought. It's like if I can learn a little bit about a lot, thinking like you said, just to have a conversation. I don't have to know all the things, but if you tell me you like, a certain band, then I'm going to go like listen and get an idea. And I'm only going to go so far unless I just find this super huge interest into it. But then
Right.
I can come back and have a conversation with you about them. And really, it's more so I just start hearing from you as the person who really loves this band, whatever. But I'm like, yeah, they're cool, whatever. I'm just like coming along with you just to have a conversation. I think that's just a really cool connection point and a smart way to make connections with other people when we could be closed off, but that's not what God tells us to do. Jesus
Right.
clearly shows us, to be in community and be active, engaging in community. So
Exactly.
I,
And you
I
never
love that.
really know what someone's going through either,
Yeah,
Me showing interest in your interest may be something that you need in that moment because you may feel alone.
yeah,
So, and I've been there before, and felt alone and felt like nobody had the same weird interest as me. As he said, I really enjoy serial killers and the minds of serial killers. So finding, that little niche and the little group of people that know something about the things that you know something about really
yeah,
just helps you connect in the world.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. So just to put my guys on the spot, in my men's group, they, if you were to line us up, there's no way on a normal basis you would stick me with them just by plucking me out and saying, yeah, you belong with this group of guys. I know hardly anything about hunting, fishing, um,
Football.
football, basketball, baseball, whatever. I guess, quote unquote, there's not really a normal person in the world ever,
Yeah.
but their normal see of what
Right.
they enjoy. So I've had to learn what I can in a capacity of just understanding the logistics of it, of being able to apply certain analogies of sports or fishing or hunting in what we're studying to bring the scripture to life for them in a way that they can understand it. And so that's also somewhere where I've been able to take Tolkien and read it and not tell them what it's from and say, are you hearing this is what this person's saying? They're saying, look, Bilbo, you left the Shire as one as as this version of yourself and you came back as someone completely different. There's something wrong with you, and that's a good thing. And so getting them to understand that um there's something wrong with all of us and that's okay um has been one of the few stepping stones at the beginning. And so being able to bring my interest and their interest together so that they can see they're completely different, but the way that you apply them can get you to the same finish line.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're using that like in a Bible study format, like you're with your Bible study group. Like you're leading these guys and you're trying to bring your interests and their interests together for the goal of learning more about Jesus.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, with getting other people closer to Jesus, do you ever try and weave that into some of your D&D sessions?
Yeah.
Ooh, tell me about it.
So D&D, I now have 6 players I'm keeping up with.
Wow.
And so they just got out of their first dungeon crawl. So they were met with all that you can probably imagine within this dungeon. And so leaving them with a sense of they're not invincible, that they can be broken and they can possibly die. And then to bring them out of that with new people that have just entered into this group, and then some of the non-player characters or NPCs that I've created, I basically have set it up in a way that they are on a warpath against certain gods of darkness.
Mm.
And they are very, very small on the leveling scale right now. They are nowhere near where they can do much of anything but a pinprick to them.
Mm.
So it's really cool to give them something that's may seem completely impossible. Introduce them to characters that give them encouragement and direction, um, that kind of stem from. There's actually a lot of nuances that I kind of take from either our Wednesday night group or even the Sunday previous and apply that into the story in some way that fits the mold of what's going on. Um, and so I've tried to do my best of giving them the emotions and the realities that, like, if something bad happens, you're gonna feel the repercussions not only in your character's life, but they're gonna reach out across this fictional world and affect millions of people.
Mm.
So the decisions that you make not only hold weight just in this moment, but I'm already thinking 6 sessions ahead of how that could affect another town or another continent. Um, and so they're getting they're getting more of a realization that, for their characters, there are ones that have kind of this savior concept to them.
Yeah.
And then there's also kind of the apostle like characters that are coming in, kind of speaking of things from the past, um, that are historical context that they kind of have to dig into.
That's really cool
So
and creative.
Yes, it is. I like the way you're kind of weaving it in there. It's subtle. It's not real in your face. It's not over the top.
Well, it's like how Tolkien would do it.
I was gonna say it's less C.S. Lewis, because C.S. Lewis he kept it on the surface. At least Chronicles of Narnia. That's where my mind's going. It's on the surface. He didn't hide it. It was very much about Jesus. But yeah, Tolkien, like, man, it's subtle. He'll write 15 chapters about going through the woods in a story that honestly barely even matters to the overall arch, but he takes the time to put it in there, and there's just little subtle things going on.
yeah,
I like that. That's good. So as someone who considers themselves a creative, and there's both of you people who consider yourselves creative, how does being creative help you feel closer to Jesus?
He keeps looking at me first.
I was like putting her on the spot
Yeah, he
after
does.
she's already like kind of in the spot.
He does. He does.
Right.
For me, it would just be the more I learn, the more, now that I am in Christ, I can see how it all connects back to Him. You know, even the art forms, and whether it's actual art or music or whatever the case may be, it's all a gift that we were gifted. Without Him, we wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. And He gifts it to us for a reason, whether it's to give us peace throughout our day. Because I know for me, sometimes coming home and crocheting, or now play with my Cricut machine, or reading or studying up about somebody in history. But sometimes that's just my peace. Sometimes that's just the part of my day to where I can get out of my own head. I can get away from the noise of the world and, talk to God while I am doing these things, and just have a sense of peace about myself. And then also, you get to share that with other people. And when you have a peace about yourself, you can spread that. And so for me, that's how it brings me closer to Him.
I love that.
You're kind of hearing that and building off of it. I think we both would agree that when we are doing the things that we like to do to create, we we're very mindful of not only creating something, but also creating the space for each other to do that. Because if there's anything that both of us have learned through our lives and through the 3 years and this 1 year of marriage, what you give yourself as nourishment is either going to give you a healthy nourishment, or it's going to basically desolate you mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And so I think the more, not only in the creative aspects, you get nourishment from that, because it's not an arrogant or prideful thing, but knowing that you're gifted in whatever facet that is, and understanding that you do have a capacity. Yeah, so not only do you have a capacity, all of our levels of capacity differ, and you have to understand that you have a limit to that capacity. Because if you try to go past that, then you are neglecting the nourishment and causing a friction to your well-being. There's I know I've read a lot of things, but uh, Robert Morgan said meditation is staying our minds on the Lord, loving Him with every thought, fearing Him, and delighting in His commands. Um, and so, I definitely, for me, at least in those moments of creating, I'm nourished not only by what I'm doing, but also I'm nourished by being able to think about the actual person of God in those moments.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that first of all we get a gift from God, some sort of talent or skill or and even just an interest that could turn into a skill. We're all made in the image of God, and if we're made in the image of God, that means we're all made in the image of a creator, which makes us all creators in some form or fashion. But yeah, I think I just like kind of what you said there with the meditation too. Like you can, really sit and think on God and think on His Word and think on the being of God. Maybe in some of the things that you do, like while you're crocheting, Pam, that's a really good time to meditate and think on the Lord. So yeah, really cool.
Pam, I saw you grab a notebook or a journal. What you got for us?
Oh no, I'm just fidgeting.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
I thought you were like about to share
Helps
something.
me pay attention. It has a stretchy thing on it.
You need a fidgeter.
I love it. No, that's good. All right. 2 questions left. I'm going to kind of meld one of them together and then ask one final one. This one. So, how would you guys encourage somebody towards acting on some creativity that maybe they've ignored in their life, or maybe they've never really felt like they're really creative? And how would you encourage people to grow intellectually and use both of those, this intellectual growth, this creative outlet, towards growing in their faith? I know that was a long question.
No, it's good.
But how do you encourage somebody in creativity and growing intellectually and using that in their faith?
I would say just do it. Find something that you have been even slightly interested in learning about and just study up on it. And anytime that you're learning, I feel like God's going to present Himself. It happens in day-to-day life. He's there all the time. You just have to, you have to listen is what you have to do. And I'm not real good at that, as y'all can tell. But I think that I would just encourage anybody to learn, because all of us are creators. Like Virginia said, we're created in His image and He is a creator. So we all have it in us to create something. He didn't just set us here, for giggles. Like we're made here to create things and to bond with one another in that creation. So I say just start from the beginning and learn.
Yeah, I like that. Simple. Just do it.
Just do
and
it.
look for God in it.
Right.
I think in everything that we do, we can, in some sort of fashion, we can see God. So I love it.
Right.
Just do it. Kevin.
I'm not simple. I'm sorry.
His is going to be deep.
It's okay.
It's a simple quote. Annie Dillard said, "We wake, if we ever wake at all, to mystery." And for me, the mystery of God is something I think everybody in their intellectual and creative nuances, special ways they go about that, get to figure out who God is to them in that mystery of what we call a Christian walk. Because even that is a mystery. And kind of going back to we have in our group, our men's group, and a little bit in the couples group, I've really been going back to the whole Eden, and really just Genesis as a starting point because of the creative nature of God, and something that I've been working through and kind of talking with my guys and also just at work and stuff. But Virginia, you hit it on earlier about uh, the darkness, you know. So, and it's something that is a very humbling realization when you realize that in our flesh there is still darkness. And so, what started out as a void of darkness and chaos, God came in and put his spirit over it to bring light to it so that there was no more chaos. And that's exactly what he does with us in our spirit when we accept him. And so I like to push people. I don't like to go about it in an easy way, but I like to push people with questions by playing devil's advocate. And so what I would say is, do you feel the chaos and darkness in you because of your flesh? How is that hindering you from being creative and intelligent? Do you see where the light comes in and changes that? And so when that happens, where does that freedom give you to be more creative and more intelligently healthy?
I love that. This whole pursuit of intellectual wellness, creative outlets. It's not just, for no reason at all. It's not just for.
It's not just to get smarter
It's not
or
just
to
to get
be
smarter.
academic.
Yeah, and to do more and be more and to carry those accolades. I heard this phrase a while back, and I've said it a lot of times now that I've heard it because it really just sums it all up. It's this pursuit of, the specific topic we're talking about today, intellectual wellness, knowing more, is to know God and to make him known. And I keep coming back to that phrase because I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like my goal is to know God and to make him known. Know Jesus, make him known. You could, definitely say it that way too. And I think that it's so cool that we got to kind of wrap this up all in one and hear from you guys on that, on your own pursuit in your own, individual worlds. Whereas, we all do it a little bit differently. And that's what's really cool about, we're all made in the image of God, but yet we're so different too, from person to person. So one last question. Is this the question? Okay. What is something messy in your life that you're loving?
My house.
Right. I like every day.
Oh my goodness.
No. Okay. I know that sounded kind of shallow, but no, I bought it as a single mom, which just meant I needed something cheap. I didn't care that it was a fixer upper. Which being a single mom, I couldn't fix the upper, so it just stayed a fixer upper. But now that she's moved out and I have a life partner with me, the house is getting remodeled one small room at a time, but it is a catastrophe.
Yeah.
It is a huge mess. And so, but we do most of the stuff ourselves. So we're learning when we're doing it because I'm not a construction worker or a handyman by trade by any means.
Neither am I.
But so we get to learn, we get to spend time together, probably take the long way around of remodeling the house. But it's our mess that I'm actually really enjoying.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
I think he enjoys it less.
I do enjoy it. I'm such an OCD driven individual. Um,
Preach.
so like I know I can see it and it's not finished, but also there's 1,500 other things that I can see that aren't finished, and so like trying to internally pick, okay, do this one. But I would say the thing that's I'm enjoying that's messy, um, as structured as it is on the school side, the messiness of learning and getting a bachelor's degree, doing that full time with a full time job and being a full time husband.
I thought you said you went to part time.
Well, it's still 12
That's a
hours.
discussion we'll have later.
It's still 12 hours. But so doing all of that together, along with creating space for a D&D game that happens every week, creating space to do stuff around the house, creating space to go, and like it's in the intentionality of us going Friday nights for date night. And if it's not Friday night, we pick a night that works and we're like, this is it. So I just think I think there's a song, The Beautiful Chaos, that is life and is everything around us, is something that I've come to appreciate more and love more, because there's something to say about when we get through the chaos and make it to the other side of glory, that we can say, yeah, that was a fun ride, but this is going to be even better.
I love that.
So good. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out and doing this with us. I knew this was going to be one where we got to chase questions pretty well, and we did. Honestly, the D&D reference at the beginning was mostly just meant to be a low-level, fun entry point, and I loved it. It kind of became a thread that tied just about everything together in this episode.
Yeah.
But it matches well with you guys of being in that creative space, kind of being outside of what some people would consider a box to live in. Who needs a box when you can play D&D for 4 hours in a week?
Right?
Yeah.
So good. Well, thank y'all again for being here. If you're listening in, don't dip out. We're going to be right back with you guys after this break. Well, hey, that was a ton of fun hanging out with Cam
Kevin Pam.
Man, I have said that multiple times without the recording rolling, but we're recording now. It's Cam and Pevin. Cam and Pam Smith. I don't know why it keeps coming out that way. That was a really fun interview with Kevin and Pam. And I'm probably going to leave that in there for your enjoyment. We got to talk about D&D on a deep level, and I don't know. I really enjoyed that. We got to click in on a part of the conversation that I just put in there for a joke.
I think it's just cool no matter what you do with your creativity, whether it is D&D, it's, whatever, painting or...
Yeah, Pam likes to crochet.
Yeah, like whatever. If you can find a way to make it purposeful, and it doesn't always have to be like you're sharing the gospel with somebody when you're doing, something like that, but it's just... it's just kind of cool how they made it purposeful. He's playing D&D to have fun, but then he's also getting making some purpose. Yeah, I guess
to weave some subtle tones of Christianity in there to kind of set up for potential future conversations.
Yeah,
which is cool. Well, we want to talk about. Virginia did mention that you don't necessarily have to use your creativity for sharing the gospel, but you can be very much obeying God with your creativity. So think about it like this. God's creative because he created everything.
He is creator.
Yes. And I remember somebody years ago said this, like, imagine that you've never seen anything ever, and you have to imagine everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what God did.
Hmm.
That's so weird to think about. Like, we draw unicorns because we saw a unicorn somewhere, despite what Michael Scott may tell you on The Office. He didn't think that up. But God didn't have that advantage. And so, because God's creative...
He didn't need that advantage.
He didn't need that advantage. That's very true. Thank you, babe. But yeah, he's creative. We're created in his image. Thus, we're meant to be creative. And a massive part of creativity is using your imagination. And we're going to take it a step further and follow in John Piper's footsteps and even say that using your imagination is probably a Christian duty. But not all uses of your imagination are good. You want to give us an example from Proverbs of that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of lines in Proverbs that says, this is Proverbs 26:13-16. It says, "The sluggard says, 'There's a lion in the road. There's a lion in the streets.' And as a door turns on its hinges, so does a sluggard on his bed. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish. It wears him out to bring it back to his mouth. The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly." And so when you first read that, you're like, what's going on? I don't understand.
Right.
But when you have John Piper explain it for you,
it's helpful.
It's helpful. And apparently these proverbs put together are kind of showing how this sluggard is making up a story, like there's a lion in the streets, and he's just keep using that to keep him from having to go to work.
Right. So imagine that guy, and you know that guy, or it's that girl, that will constantly make up any kind of ridiculous excuse that, like, you can even tell as they're talking to you, like, there's no way this is true, but they sell it to you as if it is the truest thing ever, just to get out of having to do something. That's what this guy did.
Yeah. So basically, like, just being lazy and finding a way to not get to work. And so basically his lie became his reality, to the fact that, like, he couldn't even feed himself.
Right, yeah, like he's not working to take care of himself. He's unwilling to put forth any motivation to even get out of the bed. He's so lazy that, like, he reaches in to get food and he doesn't even feel like feeding himself because he's just like, ugh, I don't even want to bother today.
But apparently he thinks that, like, that...
He's just the smartest guy
yeah,
ever.
like that was a good idea.
Like, I'm so smart. Like, this guy has got a good imagination.
Yeah.
He's coming up with some good stories, like, and as he's continued to get better at his storytelling, like, he's using his imagination. It's just been hijacked by sin.
And so, like, that might feel a little hyperbolic, like, okay,
Sure.
like, nobody's gonna, be like this sluggard. But in reality, there are people out there who probably, make up things to maybe keep from doing something responsible.
Right.
And it continues and it spirals and it snowballs, and then next thing you know, they don't have a job, or they're not taking care of their family, or they're foregoing all responsibilities that they have, and then in their mind they're making up.
They've written this untrue narrative.
Right.
And have started to believe it. They've gotten so good at telling the story to other people.
And I would like to just be like, maybe that's a mental health disorder, and very likely a lot of that probably comes from those. But sometimes I think we let sin come into our life, and we don't stop it.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And so it hijacks our creativity and uses it for something sinful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Negativity.
Like to even deceive yourself.
Right.
Would be the thing there. So
yeah,
that's where it could be a bad thing. That's where imagination could, be hijacked by sin and not be a good thing for you. But think about that power that you could, that effort, that power that you can put into creating something, and it be for good. Every time Luna hits with her hand, not every time, but sometimes she'll hit with her hand, and I'm like, Luna, use your hand for good, not for evil.
I know, I love that. I don't know where you got that, but I love
said it one day, and I liked it.
It's been good. It's been good. Use it for good, not evil.
So use your imagination for good, not for evil.
Yeah, so we're imaging God. with our imagination. And while, yes, sin can hijack it, imagination is actually a Christian duty. And here's 2 reasons why. Number 1, think about Jesus' golden rule. What is it? Do unto others as you'd have others do unto yourself. That's right. Oh, man, put Virginia on the spot. Sorry. What's the golden rule?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right. So think about it this way. You got to do to others what you would want them to do to you. Cool, kind of makes sense. Like, don't be mean, don't be a jerk is what we take that as.
Mm-hmm.
But what it's really saying is, like, in every single situation that you could possibly be in, respond the way you would want someone to respond towards you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to imagine these situations. You have to imagine yourself on the other side of the situation. And as you're imagining it, you have to imagine what you would want them to do to you.
Right.
So you have to use your imagination to really apply the golden rule.
Yeah, for sure.
And number 2, it's probably a sin to speak, write, sing, whatever about God in a boring way. And honestly, I wouldn't have gone with that, but that was what John Piper went with. And after I thought about it for a minute, I went, that feels accurate.
It's like a misrepresentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, 1, it's not boring from like the listener's perspective in that I can find some old hymn that was written to be boring. That's not what this is about. It's about the energy that we're willing to put into it.
Yeah, I think it would be less about saying it's in a boring way, but more about like in a nonchalant way or in a dishonoring way or like just not putting forth the effort.
Right.
I don't know what the right word is for that.
Yeah, no. So imagine I speak to a crowd of adults and I use a ton of illustrations about 401ks. Not that every adult knows what a 401k is or how to use it, because I certainly don't. But let's say I talk about that, they get the general idea. Now I show up and I'm going to talk about God and I'm going to use the 401k illustration, but I'm talking to a group of kindergartners. That's a boring way for me to represent God to them because I wasn't willing to put in the effort to figure out how to communicate about Him in a way that they could understand. I put in the least amount of effort I could, and thus it was boring to them.
Yeah.
So it's sinful for us because we're not honoring God and how we communicate about Him. Imagination is the faculty of our mind. It's the part of our mind that God has given us to make the communication of His beauty beautiful to others. God is giving us imagination to be able to explain His beauty in a way that's beautiful. Like, we have to think up new analogies. We have to think up new songs, poems. The Psalms are literally the psalmist using their imagination to represent God to others and to represent what's going on in their world.
Yeah, so I was listening to the Bible Project podcast this morning about being created in the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the things they said was that, a lot of times we say we're created in the image of God, so that means we get some, like, many of His characteristics. True, sure. But, like, really kind of when you look into the text, what it might be inferring is that we are made in the image of God, and how we most represent Him is when we, act as God was acting. So He was, let's put it in this, He was creating the world, He was creating things in the world. So then humans came along in the image of Him, and then they start creating things too.
Mm-hmm.
So like we create a city or a recipe or a
painting.
Yeah,
or
like
a weaving.
You create a team of people. You create
D&D campaign.
You create a phone
Whatever.
app. Like everything that we make with our hands
or our minds.
Or our minds is literally us creating, but representing God, because we're made in the image of Him.
Yes.
That is how we are made, like how we can be. We are in the image of Him.
Yeah, as John Piper put it, imagination is probably the closest we come to creating something out of nothing, And again, we're created in his image and we're meant to do the things he did. Well, he created something out of nothing. Using our imagination is the closest we're going to get to that.
And he, God told Adam and Eve to, rule over and subdue the earth. Like that was going to involve some creating
Absolutely.
produce, creating crops. And I just think it's so, like, it kind of just blew my mind a little bit this morning thinking about that. But like, we are all creators, and every single, one of us might create differently, but that is how we represent God. And everything that we, like, God, it's a gift. It's a gift. Like, we don't have to live in a boring world where everything's made for us.
Right. There you go.
We have to make it ourselves.
Love it. So how do you become more imaginative? Because imagination doesn't always just roll off of everything you're doing. Well, here's the first thing you need to know. You're already have an imagination. You already
are creative.
Yeah, you're creative.
Stop saying you're not creative.
Yeah, that's something I struggled with for a long time until I found avenues in which I was good at being creative. So you already are creative. You already have the ability to use your imagination.
There's a reason why you hear people say all the time, I needed a creative outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all do.
Yep. Imagination is contagious, so get around people who are imaginative.
Like Kevin and Pam.
Like Kevin and Pam. Or if you can't get around them, get around somebody who might even already be dead, but is imaginative, like a Tolkien or a Lewis or whoever.
C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, people who write books. For anybody who might not have caught those.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get around Bach and read some of his music. You can go and see some of Da Vinci's paintings.
Please,
oh yes,
somebody learn an instrument. That's
absolutely
such a, like, becoming a lost art.
That's so real. Our worship team.
Not really, but like feel like it is sometimes. I'm like, you can't, you don't know how to play an instrument.
Right, I barely do. But yeah, like I always think we have a ton of people who are interested in singing as a part of our worship team.
Which is an instrument.
Yes, it is an instrument, and it's an ability, it's a talent, and it's a creative outlet. But we don't have a ton of people lining up to go, hey, I want to play an instrument. We need you to play an instrument.
Yeah, so learn an instrument.
And then come be a part of the Exchange worship band.
Love Jesus person.
Yeah, that's key ingredient number one.
But, okay, so I wanted to say this.
Say it.
No, you have one more. I can let you say your third one.
Okay, I'll say the third one. Being imaginative is a muscle that needs to be flexed to grow stronger. So if it's something you don't regularly do, it's going to be difficult and it's going to take time. It's like me in push-ups right now. I used to do them a lot. I stopped doing them, and so now I am struggling as I have slowly started doing them again.
Well, it's anytime.
I got to work it out again.
And I like pick up a new craft. I always try to do one of the harder tasks first, and I'm like, no, I have to actually learn how to do it before I try to do something hard. But so you're already creative. Get around people or read or learn from people who are creative, and remember that it's a muscle that needs to be trained and brought up, so it doesn't just happen. Just like Tyler's push-ups just don't happen anymore. So
it's real life.
What I wanted to say was that, and this is just making it a little bit more relevant, but like, put your phone down, turn the TV off. And I say turn the TV off after we just said, you could learn from somebody, but,
limit it. Be mindful of how much you're there.
It, definitely depends on what you're
doing,
watching, reading, whatever. But just, get out of other people's lives, on like scrolling through social media or whatever, and just try, what they say with kids, and this is why I bring this up, because with children, research is showing us that the more toys and electronic toys and all these things that we keep buying for our kids is actually not better for our kids. It's not better for their imagination. It's not helping them learn more. But when you pull back some of those toys and even like the colors, that I've even heard that like even the colors can keep your child from imagining to some degree, I guess. But I don't know all about it. But I'm just saying, like, they're starting to say now, like, lose the toys, lose all the tablets and the electronics and the noisemakers, and like give your kid like basic wooden toys or like, basic things, or cardboard box, and let them like create with their imagination. And so that's doing something with your kid, but like you're still like able to do that too with yourself.
Yep.
So, find a way, disconnect from the world, and try to connect with something creative and create yourself.
Yeah, you made me think of this. I can't remember the name of the challenge. I'll drop it in the show notes, a link to it. But it's a challenge to disconnect from technology and things like that. And one of the first things on the challenge list, and it's like a 30-day process, and one of the first things on there is to put a pot of water on to boil and then just watch it. And you're not allowed to pull your phone out. And it's going to be the most painful thing you've done in years because you're just going to want to pull something, look at something, listen to something, because we don't know how to be still and quiet. But that will probably start your process in learning how to be imaginative again.
Turn your radio off when you're in the car.
That's so real. Yeah, see, God is worth the effort it takes to use your imagination. He's worth that because we start to learn how to communicate about Him in imaginative ways. And after all, man, Scripture tells us numerous times to sing a song to the Lord, a new song specifically. And you can't make a new song until you start using that imagination again. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today on this podcasting journey. Before you roll out, make sure you swing by bowlsoflife.com to find all things Bowls of Life. You can subscribe to this podcast, share it with friends on social media. Be sure to give us a rating wherever you listen, and if you'll swing through Apple Podcasts and write a review, that would be hugely helpful to us. And here's the last thing you can do for us, and you can do it while you're at bowlsoflife.com. Just click on that little podcast tab. There's going to be a little button that says, tell us what's messy in your life that you're loving. And you can record yourself telling us that, and we'll feature you on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you again soon.
Later.